The Galactic Council's ultimatum arrived like a thunderclap. The transmission was broadcasted across Earth's networks, translated into every human language. A towering alien figure with silver skin and piercing black eyes glared down at humanity. His voice was calm but laced with absolute authority. Earth, you have been given a chance to join the Galactic Order. Yet you refuse to submit. This is your final warning. Surrender unconditionally, or face the consequences. Silence followed. The people of Earth watched, some with fear, others with quiet defiance. Governments across the planet held emergency meetings. The United Earth Defense Council, UEDC, had expected this moment. For years, they had prepared. They knew submission was never an option. Deep within an underground military base, Commander Elias Carter listened to the transmission with narrowed eyes. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Maya Wren, clenched her fists. "They expect us to roll over and die," she muttered. Carter nodded. "They don't understand us." Across the stars, in the heart of the Galactic Council's war room, Supreme Commander Vorthos leaned back in his ornate chair, watching the human response. His advisors, a collection of alien species from various empires, whispered among themselves. "They should have surrendered by now," one hissed. "They are arrogant," another added. Vorthos raised a clawed hand, silencing them. His species, the Zarkari, had conquered countless worlds. They knew resistance was common at first, but in the end, every species bowed. A new transmission from Earth interrupted their meeting. The image of a human appeared on the massive screen. President Helena Royce, the leader of Earth's unified government. Her expression was calm but unwavering. "Galactic Council," she began, her voice steady. "You demand our surrender. You threaten us with war. But before you proceed, understand this. Humanity has never knelt to conquerors. We do not fear battle, and we do not break under threats." She leaned forward slightly. "If you bring more to our home, you will learn something that many before you have. War against Earth comes at a cost." The transmission cut off. A tense silence filled the council chamber. Then laughter erupted from several alien officials. "They are primitives," one chuckled. "They truly believe they can stand against us." Vorthos did not laugh. He simply stared at the blank screen, something unsettling in his gaze. Something about the humans felt different. Back on Earth, Carter turned to his officers. "They'll come," he said. "And when they do, we'll show them why humanity still stands." The countdown to war had begun. The sky above Earth darkened as massive alien warships emerged from hyperspace. Their metallic hulls gleamed under the sun, each vessel bristling with advanced weaponry. The Galactic Council had made its choice. Negotiation was over. Inside Earth's defense headquarters, alarms blared. Commander Elias Carter stood before a giant tactical screen, watching the enemy fleet take formation. His team of strategists worked frantically, coordinating responses across the planet. "They're positioning for orbital bombardment," Maya Wren reported, her voice tense. Carter nodded. "As expected. They think we're defenseless." Above, the Zarkari fleet prepared to unleash destruction. Supreme Commander Vorthos sat in his command chair, gazing down at the blue planet. His subordinates awaited his order. "Fire," he commanded. Within seconds, plasma beams rained from the sky. Cities trembled as energy blasts scorched the earth. Buildings crumbled, streets melted, and fire engulfed entire districts. Millions of humans watched in horror as the sky burned. But then, the unexpected happened. Before the second wave of attacks could begin, Earth's counteroffensive roared to life. Massive defense satellites, hidden within the planet's orbit, activated. Energy shields flickered to life, absorbing the next volley of fire. Then, Earth's own warships, smaller, sleeker, but deadly, erupted from hidden bases on the Moon and Mars. The alien commanders barely had time to react before the first human missiles struck. Explosions tore through the Zarkari fleet, sending debris and fire across the void. Vorthos's eyes widened as multiple warships were instantly vaporized. This isn't possible, one of his officers gasped. On Earth, President Helena Royce stood in a secure bunker, watching the battle unfold. Her face remained unreadable. She turned to her communications officer. "Broadcast this message to the enemy," she ordered. Moments later, Vorthos's screen flickered, and Royce appeared. Her voice was calm, but her words struck like thunder. "You thought we were weak. You believed we would surrender. Now you see the price of underestimating humanity." The message ended. Vorthos clenched his fists. He had expected a swift victory. Instead, his forces were in chaos. On Earth, Carter and his team watched as the first enemy ships crumbled under their assault. "This is only the beginning," Carter muttered. "They came for war. Now they'll get one." The battlefield stretched across Earth's orbit, a graveyard of shattered alien warships drifting in silence. Smoke and fire rose from the remains of Zarkari vessels, their once mighty fleet now scattered. But the war was far from over. Commander Elias Carter watched the tactical screen, his sharp eyes scanning the enemy's movement. "They're regrouping," he muttered. His second-in-command, Myren, nodded. "They won't retreat so easily. They'll strike harder." In the enemy flagship, Supreme Commander Vorthos seethed with rage. He had expected Earth to fall in a matter of hours, but the humans had resisted with shocking force. "Send in the ground troops," he growled. "Burn their cities. Crush their defenses. Show them why the Zarkari Empire is feared." On Earth, alarms rang across military bases as drop ships descended from the sky, carrying thousands of Zarkari soldiers. Their sleek, armored figures marched through the ruined streets, plasma rifles glowing with deadly energy. But the humans were ready. Deep beneath the city ruins, Earth's resistance forces waited in silence. Elite soldiers, hidden turrets, and automated drones locked onto the advancing aliens. Then, with a single command, the trap was sprung. Buildings erupted as concealed artillery blasted the invaders. Walls collapsed, revealing hidden bunkers filled with armed resistance fighters. Explosions tore through the streets, turning the battleground into a nightmare for the Zarkari. From the rooftops, human snipers picked off enemy commanders. Drones weaved through the air, dropping payloads of explosives on alien squads. And from underground tunnels, heavily armed troops surged forward, ambushing the confused invaders. The Zarkari expected an easy victory, but they found only chaos and death. Watching from orbit, Vorthos's expression darkened. His forces were supposed to dominate, yet they were being torn apart by a species that refused to kneel. In the human command center, Carter smirked. "They thought Earth was weak," he said, watching the enemy struggle. "They never realized. We were always ready." The battle had shifted. What began as an invasion had turned into a war of survival for the Zarkari. Across the shattered cities of Earth, alien soldiers found themselves trapped in a nightmare of their own making. Every street, every building, every piece of rubble was a weapon against them. In an abandoned metro station, a squad of Zarkari warriors cautiously advanced, their plasma rifles glowing in the darkness. Suddenly, the walls erupted in gunfire. Human resistance fighters emerged from hidden tunnels, unleashing hell. The aliens barely had time to react before explosives buried them under tons of collapsing concrete. High above the battlefield, Commander Elias Carter watched from the control center. "They've underestimated us," he said, voice calm but filled with determination. "It's time we take the fight to them." His orders spread like wildfire. Across the planet, human forces launched a coordinated counterattack. Fighters screamed through the skies, dogfighting enemy ships with precision and ferocity. Ground troops moved in calculated strikes, hitting supply lines, cutting off reinforcements, isolating enemy squads. Deep within the mountains, hidden missile silos came to life. Gigantic launch doors opened, and a volley of advanced warheads roared into the sky. The first wave tore through the enemy fleet in orbit, ripping apart their command ships. On the Zarkari flagship, Supreme Commander Vorthos gripped the railing as alarms blared. His warships were being picked off by a species that was supposed to be inferior. "How are they doing this?" he snarled. A frantic officer turned to him. "Sir, they're using guerrilla tactics, precision strikes, and—" The ship shook violently as another explosion rocked the hull. More human missiles had struck. On the ground, Resistance leader Maya Ren led a daring assault on a captured base. Blades, bullets, and plasma fire clashed as human warriors stormed through the enemy defenses. By nightfall, the base was back in human hands, and the Zarkari were on the run. For the first time since the invasion began, the aliens felt something unfamiliar: fear. Carter watched as the enemy fleet struggled. The invaders had come expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they had awakened a force that refused to be broken. "Now," Carter said, his voice firm, "we push them back." Earth was no longer just defending. Earth was striking back. Smoke rose from the shattered battlefield, but the war had changed. What started as an invasion had become a desperate struggle for the invaders. Zarkari command centers were in chaos. Their forces were scattered, leaderless, and losing ground with every hour. Their once powerful fleet now drifted in ruins above Earth, shattered by relentless human counterstrikes. On the ground, squads of Zarkari soldiers hid in the rubble of destroyed cities. Their communications were failing. Their supply lines were cut. And worst of all, the humans, those fragile creatures they had mocked, were hunting them down with an unstoppable, terrifying precision. In the war room deep beneath the Rockies, Commander Elias Carter studied the latest battle reports. His forces had retaken most of the occupied zones, but there was still work to do. "They thought we would kneel," Carter said, looking at his officers. "Now they run, but we don't stop until they're gone." At his command, the elite human strike teams moved in. Special forces infiltrated Zarkari bases, planting explosives, hacking systems, and crippling their last defenses. One by one, the invaders' strongholds collapsed, leaving only wreckage and fire in their wake. In a hidden resistance bunker, Maya Ren and her team prepared for a final assault. "They've lost their fleet. Their forces are crumbling. Now we cut off the head." Her target, the Zarkari War Council. Meanwhile, in orbit, the surviving alien commanders argued in desperation. This was supposed to be an easy victory. One roared. Supreme Commander Vorthos sat in silence. His blood-red eyes watched the destruction below. He had never feared an enemy before, until now. His fleet was in ruins. His ground forces were collapsing. His empire, the mighty Zarkari Dominion, had made a fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity. "We have to retreat," an officer whispered. Vorthos clenched his fists. "No way." A sudden explosion rocked the command ship. Alarms blared. Then, a voice echoed through their channels. A human voice. "This is Commander Carter," it said. "Leave now, or be wiped from existence." The war was over, but the Zarkari still had one choice to make. Would they flee, or would they die? The once mighty Zarkari forces were in full retreat. Their warships, once symbols of dominance, now burned in Earth's skies. Their ground troops, scattered and desperate, tried to flee, but there was nowhere left to run. In the underground war room, Commander Elias Carter watched the enemies collapse with cold determination. "We gave them a chance," he muttered. "They refused to listen. Now, they pay the price." Across the battlefield, human forces advanced with unstoppable precision. Exo-suited soldiers stormed enemy bunkers. Drones swarmed fleeing Zarkari, cutting off their escape routes. Cities once occupied were reclaimed, their people emerging from hiding to witness humanity's greatest victory. In a captured enemy outpost, Maya Ren stood over a trembling Zarkari officer. "Your supreme commander," she demanded. "Where is he hiding?" The alien hesitated. Maya raised her sidearm. "You have 2 seconds." "His ship," the officer stammered. He's trying to escape. A distant explosion cut him off. The sky lit up as one of the last remaining Zarkari warships was torn apart by a human strike. But one ship was still running. Vorthos, supreme commander of the Zarkari Dominion, stood on the bridge of his failing battleship. His forces were gone. His empire would never recover from this humiliation. He snarled at his officers, jumped to hyperspace. Now, before they could comply, a warning alarm screeched through the ship. A new signal had locked onto them, a human fleet, and leading them, Commander Carter. On the view screen, Carter appeared, his face calm, unreadable. Running won't save you, Vorthos. The Zarkari commander's mandibles clicked in frustration. What do you want? Carter's eyes were like steel. To end this, Vorthos knew he had lost. There was only one thing left to do. His claws hovered over the self-destruct sequence. If he couldn't win, he would take as many humans with him as possible. But before he could press the button, Maya Wren and her strike team breached the bridge. The last thing Vorthos saw was the cold glare of a human warrior before a single shot ended his reign. The invasion was over. Earth had won. But the galaxy, it would never forget what humanity was capable of. The war was over, but its echoes still rumbled across the stars. The mighty Zarkari Dominion had fallen, crushed beneath the weight of their own arrogance. What was once an empire feared by thousands of worlds was now nothing more than drifting wreckage and scattered survivors. On Earth, celebrations erupted across every nation. For the first time in history, humanity had united, not against each other, but against an outside force. Their differences had faded, replaced by a single truth. Together, they were unstoppable. In the underground War Command Center, Commander Elias Carter stood before the assembled leaders of Earth. His uniform was stained with battle, his eyes sharp with the weight of what had been done. "We have won," he said, "but this is just the beginning." Silence filled the chamber. "They came here thinking we were weak," Carter continued. "They thought we were nothing more than another species to conquer. They were wrong." His gaze swept the room. "Now the galaxy knows the truth, and they will never forget it." In the orbit of Earth, human engineers examined the wreckage of Zarkari warships. Reverse engineering their technology would push humanity forward by centuries. Their weapons, their star maps, everything the Dominion once hoarded was now Earth's to claim. Deep in a darkened Zarkari prison cell, the last surviving enemy officers whispered among themselves. "The humans, we never should have come here," one muttered. "We thought them primitives, but they are monsters, monsters who fight like gods." Maya Wren, standing outside the cell, smirked. "Monsters," she repeated. "No, just people who refuse to kneel." Beyond the solar system, the Galactic Council, once indifferent to Earth, now debated in panic. The humans had done the impossible. They had defeated an empire. "What happens now?" a trembling ambassador asked. The oldest member of the council, an ancient Xilari, exhaled slowly. "Now," he murmured, "now we pray they never come for us."